Hello everyone and welcome to Retail Archaeology. Today we'll be returning to Fiesta Mall for its 1-year anniversary of its closure. This footage was filmed on January 27, 2019, exactly 1 year after Fiesta Mall shut its doors for good. If you're not familiar with Fiesta Mall, it's located in Mesa, Arizona and opened its doors in 1979. It was originally developed by the Sears and Roebuck Company through its Hobart Development Company subsidiary. During this mall's lifetime, it went from being one of the premier shopping destinations in the Southwest to a mall that became plagued by high vacancy rates and a high crime rate, including muggings, property damage, car thefts, and even an incident in 2008 where 2 patrons were attacked and stabbed within the mall. And unfortunately, one of those patrons was fatally stabbed. I wanted to return to Fiesta Mall on its 1-year anniversary of its closing to see if anything looked different or anything had changed, but it pretty much looks exactly the same as it did on the day that it closed. I did expect to see some changes though, because back in 2017 the mall was sold to Dimension Financial and Realty Investments, and they had said they planned to spend $30 million revamping it and creating a education and medical campus. The only evidence of that we found though was this banner pasted over just one of the entrance signs at the mall. All of the other entrances still say Fiesta Mall on them. It looks like here somebody was trying to provide food and water for the local feral cat population. Here's a shot into an abandoned restaurant attached to the mall, and I don't know what this restaurant was originally. When I first started covering Fiesta Mall, this restaurant had already been long abandoned. That is a lot of dust in there. Before we continue our look at Fiesta Mall any further, we should talk about this episode's sponsor, Siesta Mall. Welcome to Siesta Mall is my weekly Mall Tycoon live streaming series over on the Retail Archaeology 2 channel. Siesta Mall is a place where myself and viewers can get together and reminisce about the better times for malls and also take a shot at running a mall ourselves. New live streams are every Friday night at 8 p.m. Pacific time on the Retail Archaeology 2 channel, and the cleaned up episode is usually posted the next morning. If this sounds fun and interesting to you, I'll have a link to the Retail Archaeology 2 channel down in the description below. And now back to our update on Fiesta Mall. Now unfortunately we weren't able to actually get into the mall during this trip, but we were able to get lots of great shots of the mall interior through the windows and doors. Also, I wasn't alone for this visit to Fiesta Mall. I was actually joined by a local group of dead mall enthusiasts who were also interested to see if anything had changed in the year since the mall closed. When I first started covering Siesta Mall, this fountain was actually still running, and I was really surprised to see a fountain running in a dead mall. Usually they're either shut down or broken by the time a mall reaches dead mall status. One of the dead mall enthusiasts that was here with me actually was able to get a name and phone number of a property manager of this mall, but unfortunately nobody answered the phone or returned any messages, but we were hoping we could get in and take a tour, but I'm not surprised we weren't contacted back. You can see here, this looks exactly like it did on the mall's last day, and interestingly enough, the food court sign is still lit up. Seeing the food court sign lit up like that certainly did spark some nostalgic memories of eating in that food court over the years. This building was the last addition to the mall and was opened in 2006, and it was a Dick's Sporting Goods on the top floor and then a Best Buy underneath it. Both Best Buy and Dick's Sporting Goods pulled out of the mall though in 2016. The spot where this building is has actually gone through a lot of changes over the years. Originally, the spot was occupied by the Broadway, which was one of Fiesta Mall's original anchors, and then it later became a Macy's. Then back in 2006, Macy's and Robinson's May merged, so the Macy's played a game of musical anchor stores and moved out of this building into the old Robinson's May building. It's a shame one of the mall's original anchor buildings was demolished just to add this building that was only occupied for about 8 years before it became abandoned. Here we can see the pretty obvious label scar from the old Best Buy signage. And here's something that always seems to happen in empty parking lots for us. We'll see a car parked in the parking lot and then they'll spot us and they'll speed off. I'm sure there was nothing nefarious going on there. Even though we weren't able to get into the interior of the mall, it's still really eerie to be in an empty parking lot of a huge shopping structure like this in the middle of the afternoon and just really see nobody else. Now this is the Sears building, and this was one of the last things to close in this mall. This entrance went into the merchandise pickup area. I've covered Sears quite extensively on the channel, and of all the Sears that I went in, this was probably the deadest Sears I had ever been in back when it was open. There were times that I was in this Sears and I swear that Mark and I were the only people in there besides the employees, and it really didn't look a lot different from this other than there actually being merchandise in there. I guess it's fitting though that Sears was one of the last things to close in this mall, since Sears was actually the one that had a major hand in developing this place back when it opened in 1979. As of the recording of this video, Sears as a company is still technically alive, but very, very much close to the verge of death. There's only about 430 Sears stores left in the United States, and I would expect in the next few weeks we'll hear about the final outcome of what happens to Sears. Now here's something interesting that I don't remember being here the last time we were here is bullet holes in the windows at the Sears. I guess this goes back to this area having an increasing crime rate. It's pretty surprising to see that. I wonder when this happened. Seeing these definitely made me feel glad that I wasn't here walking around by myself. I'm not sure what the plans are for this particular anchor building. I believe Sears still owns it. It's really sad to see what's become of Sears. They, I feel like, had a better chance than anyone of taking on internet sales if they had just jumped on the bandwagon sooner, but it looks like this may be the future for all Sears in the United States eventually. Even though there doesn't seem to be any signs of the new development that's supposed to be happening here, the mall still looks pretty good. The landscaping's still all being maintained. For the most part, the mall itself looks pretty decent, except for, you know, some bullet holes in some windows and some boarded up broken windows. I've always thought to myself that this was the nicest looking dead mall I've ever encountered. Oh look, another car spotted us and took off. Again, I bet there was nothing nefarious going on there. Now this piece of street art I don't think I've ever noticed before, and that's one of the fun things about coming here, is I always feel like I discover something new every time I come here to explore and poke around. Seems to be a fairly prophetic piece of street art though, because nobody's shopping. I don't know if they're out living, but they're not shopping here anymore. It's so bizarre to be walking up to these doors but not actually be able to walk through them anymore. This was a mall that I grew up going to as a kid, and then came here quite a bit later on when it was officially a dead mall for, you know, filming and to poke around and just to kind of reminisce. I'm glad we're still able to see through the windows though. Now that spot to the right is kind of an interesting story. It was actually occupied even up until the mall technically closed by the Fade Type barbershop. They moved over here to this spot that had an exterior door. And I don't think they're open anymore. We were here during the hours when they should have been open, and it looks like they've closed. And it's also unfortunate that these old doors are damaged and that they painted over them too. They used to have a really pretty patina on the door handles. Here's another shot of the massive empty parking lot. Here's the empty Macy's, and this closed back in 2014, and a lot of people consider its closure to be one of the nails in the coffin for this mall. It was struggling back in the early 2000s, but the closure of this Macy's seems to have kicked off its spiral down the drain. Most of the windows and doors on this building are boarded up, which is not surprising since it's been closed for more than a few years now. But some of the boards seem to have fallen down, and we can take a little glimpse in here even though it's pretty dark, and this building's been completely gutted. Really the only major thing left is the escalators. Hey look, it's Mark's favorite thing, wasps' nests. Thankfully there weren't any wasps flying around. It looks like these nests are long dormant. but there were quite a few of them plastered up along the ceiling of this parking structure. Ugh, I don't like wasps either. You'll notice that guy sitting there on the bench, that was the first person that we encountered during our tour of the mall, and it was kind of weird because he was just sitting there staring at the mall. I don't know if he was an old mall walker or something that just was sad that the mall was closed or what, but we just went on about filming anyways. Now, I've always liked this little play area because if you notice on the sign, the font that Fiesta Mall is written in is actually the old logo and font. And that's kind of an interesting piece of the past. And it's also interesting that the play place is still here and in decent condition. I can see that play place still being useful if and when doctors' offices ever move in here. It's so surreal to see this mall like this because I remember coming here back in high school and you would just see people streaming in and out of these doors. And now it's just a great big giant empty shell. Do you see what I mean though? The mall still looks really nice inside, and they really were trying to make this work all the way up until the end. There was a lot of money dumped into remodeling this mall in the mid-2000s, and there was a whole Fiesta District theming that was set up around the area, and none of that seemed to help. Now, this Dillard's Clearance Center is actually still open. This is the only thing attached to the mall that's still open, and from what I understand from rumors I've heard, that may be going away as well. They may be moving this clearance center to a different mall. Unfortunately, inside this Dillard's, the gate is down though, so you can't get into the mall from it. But if you're interested in seeing what this Dillard's looks like inside, I do have another video on this channel covering that Dillard's Clearance Center. It was a very bittersweet feeling being here. It's nice to know that the mall is actually still technically here. It's just a shame that you can't get inside and it doesn't look like anything's going on with it yet. Anyways, if you have any memories of shopping at Fiesta Mall, I'd love to hear about them down in the comments below. As always, everyone, thanks for watching. Want to see your name here? Head on over to patreon.com/retailarchaeology to find out how you can help support the channel. Hey, thanks for checking out my update video on Fiesta Mall. If you enjoyed it, make sure to hit those like and subscribe buttons, and also make sure to follow at the social media links down there because that's the best way to keep up with what's going on with the channel.